Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's vOLTHA TST. Thanks for joining. We have skipped the last two meetings due to, several things, but I think we have a good set of topics for today that we have to address. So the first one is just to get a feeling from everybody if the different JIRAs that they've been working on have been updated to the latest. Is that something that people have done? Can I assume that the latest state of the JIRAs is the correct one? I did a pass yesterday, and it seemed that there's still some are in progress, some more to do. Is there anything here that still needs to be done and or can be moved to future? If so, please, I would ask everybody to do so timely, possibly in the next couple of days, so that we have a pretty clear understanding of what still needs to go in the release. Okay. Anything in particular that stands out that people want to talk about here?
There are a few in my name. I think that they need to go to next release. I'm sorry, I didn't take a pass at this.
Okay.
I'll do that today.
Okay, thanks, Girish. That's no problem. If you have any questions, just send them over to me on Teams or Slack or whatever, and we can figure it out. Okay. The next item is for you, Girish. Can you give us an update on the status of the rolling upgrade tests that we have been working on?
Okay. So a bit of context about this issue. So we have been seeing that the rolling update test is with BBSIM has been failing for some time. And when I investigated, I noticed that there are some issues in the stack for rolling update scenario. So basically what happens in rolling update is, the Kubernetes controller first brings up the new container, new pod, and then kills the old pod. So basically we have, the read-write core that is simultaneously connected to two adapters. And this does not work in our architecture. We need, one-to-one connections between the read-write core, and the adapter, between adapter, things like that. I mean, there is one-to-one connection between every pod. So what happens is as soon as the new pod comes up, the old pod still exists. The read-write core assumes that, the pod has restarted and sends a reconcile to the old pod. I mean, it could go anywhere, but I have seen, the request going to the old pod. The old pod just ignores the request because, the device context already exists in the old pod. And the new pod is just waiting for reconcile, which never arrives. And the old pod, just responds. I mean, something goes on there. It doesn't respond, or it responds success. Basically, the devices are stuck in reconciling state. And after some time, the old pod is killed and the new pod is up, but no reconcile request goes to that. So basically the devices are stuck in some weird state and never reconciled properly. An easy fix was to change the rolling update strategy to recreate, where the old pod is completely shut down and the new pod is brought up. I mean, this achieves the same goal. I mean, this and also it works just like a restart. A pod crashes and it comes back up again. So it just works like that. But in this case, the new pod is with a newer version of the the container. But some of the cons of this approach is you have more downtime than rolling update. So basically in rolling update, there is very less downtime because you have one active pod always running. And also there are some niceties of rolling update that if the rolling update doesn't work, the controller automatically rolls back to the previous version and things like that. So there are some niceties of, the rolling update strategy. So I'm trying to make that work. I had some code changes uploaded, and thanks to Ken, he took the time to review the read-write code changes. He suggested some changes. I was testing that. I definitely didn't get much time over the past few weeks. I noticed there were still some issues. I still need to get that work, but I at least have the changes for, the OpenVOLTHA adapter, OpenONU adapter, the read-write core. If people are interested, can have a look at those changes, but it is not working completely yet. Yeah, but I'm progressing towards that, and I hope to have this completed before 2.10. Yeah, that's the update.
Thanks, Girish. So that's a pretty comprehensive update, but anything that this group can help with aside from the code reviews? If you're talking, you're muted. No. Okay. So I assume that you're just gonna proceed on this and let us know if there are any elements that we can help with. We still have 10 days for the release, well, 9. So I hope this is achievable by that deadline. So that's good. Okay, thanks, Girish. Appreciate the update. Okay, so the next up is an issue I'm seeing, which is related to the discussion we had some time ago on the topic of the ONU disable and enable. So if you guys recall, to give some context, as Girish did, the Deutsche Telekom requested us not to remove the flows on an ONU disable, because the ONU disable, if you really understand what it is, it's just a UNI port disable. The PON side stays up and stays up as it was before, and no configuration gets changed there. So what happens is that when you do this change, the issue is that the same event arrives to ONOS for the port enabled disabled and the ONU reboot. And that is causing no changes in ONOS when the ONU gets rebooted. And what the issue that means is that ONOS keeps the flows there. And by ONOS keeping the flows there, we are not actually removing them in vOLTHA because there's no flow remove request. And thus, there is, when the ONU comes back up again, vOLTHA thinks it has the flows, ONOS thinks it has the flows, so nothing gets reprovisioned on the ONU, and the ONU stays in initial mid downloaded instead of OMCI's flow pushed. This is only apparent in tests that do not use the Deutsche Telekom workflow. Why is that? Because the Deutsche Telekom workflow, on top of not doing anything on the disable, does more on the reboot. When it receives a port down on reboot, it just deletes the ONU entirely from the system. So, and it reprovisions the subscriber. So from their point of view, the tests work okay because they reprovision the subscriber. So it just sends down the flows again, and that's it. So the issue appears, for example, in the Türk Telekom tests. Now, the thoughts we had, but we wanted to share and see if everybody had any other thoughts, are that we could change the behavior of the port of the ONU reboot scenario to, instead of doing an ONU disable, to further delete the ONU. Instead of doing a port down, actually do a port removed event to ONOS. And that will allow us to move the ONU, to actually remove the ONU in ONOS, remove the flows, and that will trigger reprovisioning when the ONU comes up again, because the subscriber was previously provisioned. So some changes might be required in ONOS, small OLT app changes, hopefully, but we should be able to support this. Any thoughts from anybody? Amit, maybe you want to give some more context or some more thoughts on this?
Yeah, Andrea, you pointed out this problem. I think this should be okay. I don't see a reason why this should not work. So instead of from the adapter, instead of sending a disable, we send a port removed. I think it should work.
Okay.
So maybe Mahir, do you have any thoughts on this?
I have concerns actually, because I mean, there is a working deployment at Türk Telekom, so working with the current events, and I mean, change with the interfaces affects us too much. So if we can find another way without changing the interfaces and the events, you know, it's better for me. But
the only,
we cannot find any other way.
So the only other way, which I don't like, but but allows this to happen, is that we build two separate ONOS images, which can be done. I'm not saying, or maybe better. Actually, why didn't I not thought of this before? We make this configurable. I make this configurable in the OLT app, and yeah, go ahead, Mahir.
But it is not only the OLT app. I mean, you changing
No.
the behavior of the VOLTHA.
Yeah. Sorry. When I say this, I mean how ONOS handles support disable. I make it configurable in a way that if you configure it with true, which is the Deutsche Telekom workflow, it actually leaves the flows there. If you configure it to false, it actually removes the flows, which is the Türk Telekom workflow and the AT&T workflow. What do you think? And this, I'm talking not the reboot, but the disable of the port.
Got it. Okay. I mean, and anyone
unless you think that in your use cases the flows should still be up on an ONU disable. That is, you have to tell me.
Okay, got it. When did we make this change in VOLTHA?
This is only, so for now, no change in VOLTHA has been done. It was only ONOS application, and it was done like a month and a half ago, maybe two, maybe more. This was only a change in the ONOS app, and I can point you to the Gerrit review.
Okay, go on to the change. We can do on our sides accordingly during the merge.
Which change? The port removed?
I mean, if you can make it, I mean, with the flag
configurable.
instead, yeah, configurable. So it would be better to, I mean, take different actions. You know?
So from your point of view, on an ONU disable, it's okay if we remove the flows.
I have to talk with the team for that.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay, it's fine. Let me know, and we can get back to me on this, and we can
Yeah.
then decide the best approach. Okay.
Yeah, please, if you can send the link for the patch. For
Yes.
that. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, this is Rafael from Furukawa. I have a question about this. I'd like to talk again about the ONU restart scenario, because is there any specific reason why you guys don't keep the flows installed? As you said, ONUS is keeping the flows. vOLTHA keeps the flow. What is the reason why you guys want to remove the flows in this case? Because from the POM perspective, the ONU is getting back with the same idea, and if you stay with the same flows, just pushing the flows from the adapter to the ONU hardware would be okay.
So, okay, very good question. The reasoning behind this is a very old reasoning, and maybe somebody that was in the project before me can actually speak about this, because I came in when this reasoning was already selected. And the reasoning is that vOLTHA takes no decision on flow addition or removal by itself, meaning the decisions are only taken by the controller who reacts to vOLTHA events. So in this case, what you're proposing, which could be a valid fix, I'm not saying no, I'm saying the reasoning behind why we don't do it, why I'm not proposing it, is the fact that it would be the ONU adapter making this decision, not ONUS, not the controller. That is the reason why.
Even if the controller is skipping the flows? Because from
Yes,
the controller
so,
perspective, it's skipping
yes.
the flows, right?
Yeah, because the flows are kept because the event is wrong. So it's either you change the event or you put in this behavior in the OpenONU adapter, which bakes in controller logic flow in the adapter, which was the reasoning why this was never done. So Amit, Mahir, Theo, somebody that has more context on the story or the history of the project might enlighten us a little bit more.
So,
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, so whenever a ONU goes out, right, so either on a LOS or a dying gasp, we don't know, right, whether it's going to come back and when it's going to come back, because we don't know what's happened, right?
Yep.
So for how long do we keep the flows? And maybe it comes back after a long time and gets assigned with a different ONU ID.
Yep.
Understood. So in this case, you need to delete the
Yeah.
the logical port from the controller.
Yeah.
And the flows.
Yeah.
The other way, we may discuss later on that, because this deleting everything and resetting them again, you know, when you delete the flows, you also delete the gem ports assigned and TCONs
Econ IDs, yes.
Everything becomes dynamic and very complex. But on the other hand, this resolves some edge cases, like Amit told, you know, when the ONU goes, you know, when the OLT restarts, you know, everything works perfectly with this. Not perfect, but easily, you know, it's an easy scenario. But on the other hand, if you keep the flows in the vOLTHA, then you have to decide when to say remove these flows constantly, completely, or until how you should keep them, and what will be the actions in reboot scenarios for ONUs, OLTs, and for ports also, you know. So you have to handle this all cases separately, you know. But I agree that this makes everything complex, you know, deleting everything and resetting them again, reallocating them again, etc. is a bit tricky.
It's a kind of stress that could be avoided, right?
Yeah,
Maybe an alternative would be a kind of garbage collector or audit in the controller in order to wait a little bit to see if the ONU is coming back with the same ID, of course, logical parts. And if not, then run the garbage collector and clean everything up.
Yes, and we have to find some triggering mechanisms for, you know, adapters to reconfigure the devices, both for vOLTHA adapter and ONU adapter. So this can be discussed, I think, because it makes, I think it creates stress on the system during restarts, etc. Especially the vOLTHA restart. During vOLTHA restarts, we delete all of the flows of the connected ONUs, and you know, again we put all of them back. So kind of creating stress on the system.
Yeah, because even considering the event on the controller is wrong, why in this specific case we don't see the MIB sync acting in vOLTHA adapter to sync again the MEs to the ONU hardware? Because there are other situations that could happen, right? We can change the config manually on the ONU side by accessing the shell of ONU and deleting something, and then we need the MIB sync, right, working on this case.
We have MIB sync in ONU adapter.
Yeah, I know, but the question is why MIB sync doesn't work in this specific case?
Okay,
well, that's a good question. It's a good question. I can bring it up at the Open ONU book on tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay, so
just
go
to
ahead.
touch on that point, right? I think following the architecture of the controller controlling the devices, right? So ideally, it's the controller who is the master, and all the devices should be configured by the controller. So the controller is not going to learn configuration which has been changed on the devices and adjust itself. So same is the case with the vOLTHA, right? So if we directly log into the vOLTHA and do some changes manually on the vOLTHA, we don't expect the controller to be learning that. So that's one of the reasons why we ideally are not trying to learn anything from the MIB.
What they're saying here is that, I think, if I understand correctly, is, well, we expected the device to have something. It doesn't. Why this process that is intended to make sure the device has the right state does not kick in? Is this a fair understanding of what was asked?
It is, yeah, because vOLTHA, both controller and vOLTHA are keeping the configuration, right? So the only piece of the stack that is missing the configuration is the hardware itself of the ONU. So in this case, once the ONU gets back and up in the POM port, MIB sync should act.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So I think we had before we were using the MIB template, we were uploading the complete MIB, right? And which we don't any longer. Right? We are only syncing, I think, very few of the MEs and not all the MEs.
Yep. So you think it's because we don't sync all the MEs that this process does not find out the fact that we are in stale state?
Yeah, I think it has to be something to do with that as well, because and if we have to go with an approach of doing a complete sync of the MIB, right, we have to upload the complete MIB.
That's what I also know, but we have to, I mean, check with the ONU adapter guys probably. But as far as I know, yeah, we sync a part of the MEs.
Yes, only a part of
the ones that coming from the flows, etc. We don't say persist all of the data to reconfigure again in the ONU adapter. We persist some of important data that is used during reconciliation, but not all of the MEs. So we don't sync all of the MEs. We cannot sync all of the MEs currently at the ONU adapter. That's what I know. So needs to be checked with the ONU adapter guys.
Okay. Okay. it's hard for me to commit to make this fix before then, before the release, like before June 30th, because it's, depending on which way we go, it could be not an immediate fix.
Andrea, what is what was the proposal to check at the ONU what has been configured? That means also regarding flows and so on, or what could cause such change? And actually, when we do a MIP sync or a MIP upload, then we only make a MIP reset before, and then we only get the factory settings from the ONU. So we never examine the ONU what was configured afterwards. The only thing we do is to check the MDS counter in case of reconciling to see if the quantity of configurations, and then if the quantity of configurations is equal, then we do not reprovision the ONU. And if it differs, then we do a complete reprovisioning. But we never check the quality of the configurations in the ONU.
Okay, then the question becomes, after reboot, you probably get it different. Why don't we reprovision it after reboot? Like probably
after reboot, we get a new announcement of the ONU, and it runs through a complete MIP cycle and complete reprovisioning.
So a complete, yes, but a complete reprovisioning, if we have flows,
no. So what happens is, when the ONU is rebooted, we get a ONU down indication. So that basically goes ahead and resets the ONU. So all the state machines, are stopped on ONU down. So all the configuration is cleared. The ONU is MIB reset. So it is in its factory setting.
So
only
what you're
come in is the ONU, provisioned again with the new flows.
So what you're saying is we have the flows in the core, they're not in the adapter.
They're definitely not in the adapter, they're in the core or owners. I mean, right now I'm confused. With all
also in the adapter, also in the core probably, also in the core, because owners does not make the core remove them, if I make any sense. Like it's not forcing the removal of those flows. So the ONU adapter resyncs them. And that's fine, and it just restarts completely the state. But then it's the core does not get this empty state from the adapter, and that is what is causing the issue. Okay, okay.
As far as I know, the core does not by itself push any flows.
Yes, as I said, it's always on us.
Yeah.
So we need to populate this event in ONOS. I can look at doing the port removed event, but that would mean that, as Mahir was saying, we would need to change that handling everywhere we handle that port removed event.
So may we assume that the event that we are going to change for the ONU restart will be the same for disconnecting the POM port from the ONU?
I would assume
it's going to be the same situation, right?
I would assume so, yes. I would assume so. Effectively, a PON LOS causes ONU removed port removed event, and that would be the same port removed event that we get on port or ONU reboot. Is that right, Amit?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I can take a look at the changes to do that. Before I make any changes, I'll talk to you, Mahir, to make sure that that is fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good, awesome. Okay, now for the remaining part of the meeting, I would really like to have Suhas from the Radisys team give us an overview of the controller architecture that they the controller they contributed to the vOLTHA Go controller repository. So anybody wants to take that on? If it's not to us, somebody else. Sorry if I thought it would be to us.
Hi, Andrea. Naveen here.
Hey, Naveen. Hello.
Hi, all. Good evening and good morning. I'm presenting on the core architecture and also the core structuring. And yeah, let me share my screen.
I'll stop sharing. Okay, perfect. You can see it.
Able to see it?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, this will be the architecture for the vOLTHA controller. So vOLTHA controller mainly we are dividing into three things: applications, controller, and the OS agent. So applications mainly consists of this protocol-based behavior, protocol-based implementations, and also the profile managements. And the controller, basically it's an intermittent layer between the applications and the OS agent, which will take care of flow and group management, audits, and then the device management. And OS agent is same as what was there in the current OS agent as a separate microservice. Here it will be integrated part of the vOLTHA controller itself, which contains the translation of the messages as well as the OpenFlow protocol. So on the Northbound, it was only REST APIs, and also we have an CLI through which we can see the configurations, which we call VGCCTR. So going each package wise, if you look at the core structuring, is the internal package, so which consists of the first applications, which, as I said, will have protocol-based applications like the DHCP, PPPoE, IGMP, etc. So for this will take care of processing the packets from the subscriber as well as from the network side. And apart from that, it handles the profiles and subscriber configurations from Northbound. So in our case, it will be the configuration pushed to the for the service, and then the VLAN informations, and also the MVLAN configurations. And apart from that, this package only takes care of flow, group, and meter constructions, everything based on the profile configurations that's being pushed from the Northbound. And also, it takes care of the upgrade. When we move on from one version to another version, the data translation, everything will be handled in this package. Next comes the controller. The controller mainly does the device and port managements. So any information it gets from the OS agent, it will convert the information and pass it on to the applications. So that application, the various applications, whichever has the usage. For example, if there is a port event coming up from the OS agent, so the port event will be translated and will be sent to the application so that the subscriber configurations can be pushed and the flows can be constructed for the same. So apart from this events, and also the periodic audit also is handled here. So based on the configured time frame, the flows, groups, and meters, all the tables will be synced up between the vOLTHA controller as well as the vOLTHA. So next is the OS agent. OS agent mainly is responsible for discovering the device and also managing the connection with the device, which is the gRPC connections. And it is responsible for gathering all the events from the southbound. For example, the change event for to the ports, and also any packet in and packet out received from the southbound. Everything will be received in the OS agent and will be passed on towards the controller. And the OS agent layer, which consists of the OpenFlow protocol libraries also. So next package will be the tasks. So everything in the vOLTHA Go will be, sorry, the vOLTHA Go controller will be serialized and will be handled. For example, if a particular set of flows has to be pushed for a particular subscriber, then everything will be put on in a single queue, so that all the flows will be back to back. Whereas if it's for a different subscriber, it will be enqueued in a separate queue. So the task framework takes care of queuing and enqueuing of the flows and any other configuration to be pushed downside based on the separate categories. And the interfaces file is basically for the interaction between these three main modules: the application, controller, and the OS agent. Any questions so far?
So you have the vOLTHA Go CLI. So you said that is used to read the configuration, but can it also be used to write the configuration?
No, it's only read operations.
Okay. And do you support EAPOL? I don't see that in the protocol.
No, EAPOL is not supported.
Okay. So the tasks are so every task is blocking, is what I heard in the previous discussion. So you want to configure a flow, so that flow has to be processed to completion before picking up the next event in the queue. You're just trying to.
Yeah, in that queue only it will be blocking.
Okay.
If we are pushing services for a different subscribers, both can happen parallel.
Yeah, makes sense. Got it. Thanks.
What is the relation between the vOLTHA Go and the and vOLTHA itself? So is it a 1-to-n relation? So in the OF agent, you know,
it's currently one-on-one. One vOLTHA Go controller to one vOLTHA.
Yes, and this, so OF agent currently is only designed for yeah, one-to-one
Yes,
connections. Okay.
One-to-one. Yes, correct.
I see.
Okay. Next comes the database package, which basically consists of wrapper APIs, so that in the applications or in the controller, whenever we are accessing the database, it will be as general API.
Naveen, sorry, if I may piggyback on the question from Nils. Keeping the OF agent name is a bit unfortunate because really there's no open flow in here. That is like what's called OF agent here is really just the south. Basically, they copied the code of the existing open flow agent of vOLTHA, because on the southbound of the existing open flow agent of vOLTHA, there is the piece that speaks to vOLTHA, so that speaks the vOLTHA gRPC APIs. Down to vOLTHA, and they kept that, and they kept it calling OF agent, but it's not OF agent. It's just the vOLTHA gRPC plus the OpenFlow protocol library, because the flow mod is still there. The packet in, packet out, meter mod, group mod, are all there as construct, as protobuf constructs, but there is no OpenFlow protocol involved anymore. Sorry, maybe just to make that clarification.
Yes, that's just only the structures. There's not exactly an OpenFlow connections in between.
Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, so just a follow-up on one of my previous questions. So the events that are being processed and pushed down to vOLTHA are serialized on a per subscriber basis. Normally, I have seen that, you know, from previous experience, that there could be impact on the configurations that are being pushed down based on the events that come back from the device. So you're pushing down flows, you know, you're processing events serially, but you receive some events, so a port down or something. So how does the events coming from southbound affects the configurations that are being serialized and processed, you know, downstream? So I'm just trying to understand how these interwork with each other.
Okay. When there is events that's getting processed towards the southbound, so those events will be in a separate queue. Whereas when from the southbound any events comes up, that is why it's different channel.
Okay.
So that channel can be handled parallelly, and based on that, any other configuration needs to be pushed. That can happen separately.
Okay, so if I understand, if some event comes from southbound, and that needs, some configurations are to be pushed, downstream, so they are put in the same queue that you are processing currently for.
If it is a flow itself, yes, it will be in the same queue. Basically, the configurations will be flow, group, and meter only.
Okay.
So if it's flows and groups, yes. If it's a flows, it will be in a separate queue. If it's groups, it will be in a separate queue.
Yeah. So basically, my point was, I have seen the code getting a lot messier, and when there are multiple configurations that you need to process towards the device, I mean, it's really tricky whether you put them in the same queue or different queue, because there are a lot of interactions between. I mean, there is no strong isolation between all these events that you process sometimes. I mean, it's a very stateful application. So I'm just trying to see, yeah, maybe I haven't seen the code, I haven't had time.
Okay.
So basically on a port down, you may need to remove certain flows, but you're also adding some flows. And yeah, I mean,
okay. Basically, this scenario happens when there is a back-to-back flapping happens, right? When there's a port up and port down immediately back-to-back. Yeah. In case of, so that's kind of a rare scenario where the flow adds will get added to the queue, followed by flow remove will be added to the queue itself. It will be all be serialized in a single queue. Yes.
And also not to forget, I mean, it's not just, events coming from southbound. I mean, the user, when you're adding some flows, the user could also go ahead and, add some other configuration. May not be flows, I don't know. I cannot imagine right now. It may not be the flow queue itself. I mean, it could be some other.
Because basically, whatever we does is going to boil down to flows, groups, and meters, right?
Okay. Yeah. Most likely, yes. I think so. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. I'm overthinking. I'm just brought this up. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
So yeah, currently the database, we have interfaced with Redis. That's what we're using. So since we have the wrapper API layers, anything if you want to change, we can change it without affecting without touching the code for the applications or controller or any other packages, except we have to make changes only in the database. And yeah, the Docker file, which consists of the Docker related things, and comes as part of the vOLTHA controller, we have the CLI commands. So this are some of the sample commands we have as part of the CLI, like the devices, groups, flows, and task lists. And as part of the vOLTHA controller package itself, we have the node basically the REST interfaces defined for this configurations, like the profiles or the MVLANs or the VLAN related configurations. Those related configurations are part of the node interface. And basically the vOLTHA Go main the Go main will be part of the vOLTHA controller package. So yes, with respect to the course structuring, yeah, that's it. Any other questions from anyone?
No, I think this is very helpful to also understand better the patch for when people review it. So I would encourage people to actually go in and take a look at the review of the patch to make sure that the code is sound and things are actually being done properly. I know Theo started having a look. So Theo, if you have any comments, any things that you want to share with the team. I unfortunately did not really have the time to go through this because of the many things I had to do, but I will try to do it in the next few days, hopefully soon.
Hi, Andrea, just
Yeah.
a thought here. On the patch, we will be pushing the SEA a bit later. The SEA related static analysis fixes a bit later, because it's a different thing, a different tool that we use here in Radisys, and it's a kind of different in the community that Matthew had mentioned. So it is a bit of a bigger difference that we have, and it will take us some time to fix. So it might come in the next patch that we will upload post this patch is patched. Would that be okay?
Yes, that would be okay. What you're asking is for us to override Jenkins when the only issues left are the SCA issues.
Yes, yes.
That would be okay. We've done that in the past before, with the assurance that you guys are going to push another commit on it. I think we can.
Yeah, sure. It is already work in progress. So I don't want to hold back this patch just for the sake of SCA. If all other things are fine, I think we should go ahead with this. And SCA will be the very next patch that is going to come.
Okay, sounds good. Any objection to this, guys?
No, this is the first comment on the repo, so it totally makes sense to get around it, to get things working. I don't see any problem with that.
Yep. Okay, we'll do it. We'll do that. Okay, so let's give maybe some more time. How much you guys would like to have for a review of the patch? Let's say maybe 1 week for some of us to take a look at this.
It's a big patch, so we need time to go over. I don't think 1 week is enough, at least for me. I mean,
one week.
Okay. By the way, is there a multicast application in the controller? Sorry?
Sorry, what is it?
So any multicast implementation in the controller?
Yes, multicast implementation is present as part of the applications package.
Okay.
To add to that, the implementation is a bit different. Now in the LWC is port aware, and the ONOS is not. It's uni aware. So the implementation is a bit different, man.
Okay. Okay. Anything else, guys, that you wanted to talk about? I don't have any other topic for today's TST.
Andre, I have one on the OLT reconnect reboot.
Yes. Oh, please. Yes, there was actually that topic. Yes.
Yeah. So I have tested it extensively locally. It all works fine. The hardware test suite, I know enough that works fine, and also the BBSM single OLT test suite works fine. But there is only timing issues which we faced in the multi OLT test suite. So I synced up with Hardik as well today. So we checked, and it looks like most of the test cases which failed are all related to timing issues. So Hardik, can you please add your findings?
Yes, Abhilash. As you said, I think with your change, the system with the BBSIM deployment has got a bit slowed down. And in BBSIM, the ONUs, they come up serialized, like one after the other. So in some cases, we are seeing a bit delay. We are checking too fast in the test. It was working previously fine, but now with this change, we see some failures because of that. We tried a few things and they worked. Probably I'll extend them to other cases as well, and should have a patch for that by tomorrow for all the cases. I hope so. But yeah, I think we need to, run most possible cases to figure out if you're not missing anything. The hardware ones look fine. It's just with the BBSIM, just to clarify.
So Hardik, can I assume you're going to upload the patch and test it tomorrow in effectively all, one could say, all the tests we have?
Yes, I've already started working on that. I have made changes in few of the files. I'm still looking, all the places where we need this change. So yes, by tomorrow I should be able to finish this off.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Hardik. So we expect to have this hopefully merged by the end of the week. That is my expectation.
Yes. So I think we need to check this on. So for now, I think we just tested this on, for the ATT workflow, and but we need to try this on the DT and maybe TT as well, right? The telecom.
Yeah. I mean, I have full confidence that you'll make the proper tests before merging this.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take a look at those as well. Thank you.
And the patches for I have patches in BBSIM adapter core. All the comments are addressed. So if we can have follow-up previews, it'd be helpful.
Yep. Okay, I'll take a review of those as well. As soon as the test pass, I'll have a review of that.
Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, one short one on the FTTB flow failure that we were seeing. So Girish is on the call as well. So looks like this flow failure was happening earlier as well, but somehow it was not getting propagated to ONAS. ONAS didn't see the failure, and that's how it was passing. And what I understood from Girish's email is that this is a problem that we are seeing with BAL. Girish, do you remember the FTTP 1T-conf gem configuration?
Yeah, it's not necessarily. Yeah, I remember that. I mean, it's not necessarily a problem with 1T-conf gem. I think the problem is probably with replacing outer VLAN. I mean, something to do with VLAN tag manipulation. I'm not quite sure. I haven't investigated, but it certainly requires follow-up with Broadcom. I mean, if someone wants to use FTTB on BAL-based OLTs, yeah, this certainly needs to be fixed. So I requested if someone who continues to be active in the community, raise a ticket with Broadcom and follow up with them.
Okay, so what you're saying is that this needs to be written down as a known issue in release notes. And I'll assign this to myself. Okay. 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 Well then, thanks everybody. Talk again next week, and please send updates on the different channels about the different elements that everybody's working on for the release. Okay. And yes, Suhas asked if I can put the tentative timeline for the yes. Yep, done. Okay, thanks everybody. I'll talk to you next week. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.